to Pause for Payments with Kristy. I'm Kristy Duncan, founder of Women in Payments, and I'm so delighted to have with me today Nicole Meyer, who's founding and managing partner of the Meyer Partnership based in London and New York. I've been looking forward to today's discussion with a lot of anticipation, as Nicole is one of the best networked people in the industry that I know. She has a virtual Rolodex that many people would die for. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Kristy. Very nice to be here.
Thanks for joining me. So, Nicole, we got this great topic, the gift of feedback. Let's start with why. Why do you think feedback is a gift?
Because it allows you to grow. Because otherwise, how would you know how you're performing, how others perceive you, and frankly, whether you're meeting expectations in your job? You may think that you are, but without asking for feedback, how would you know? And so why not give yourself an opportunity to grow? Why not give yourself an opportunity to expand your skill set, to understand your skill set? You may think you're great at something, but the feedback that you're going to get back may suggest otherwise. Equally, you may think you're not particularly good at something, yet the feedback that you might get might suggest otherwise. So we all have moments of doubt. We all have moments of thought where, did I do that well? Did I not do that well? Why not ask somebody? Why not get somebody to actually address that question and give you the opportunity to excel? I think getting feedback is a gift because it's a leadership skill. Not everybody is good at getting it and receiving it. If you can learn how to grow from the experience of getting it and receiving it, I think it actually has tremendous potential for your career and your growth as a person. And why shouldn't you know where you stand within the organization? I think your organization would welcome an opportunity to give you the feedback as well. And I suspect most of you have formal feedback programs at your companies and you're used to doing it maybe once a year. But I think asking for feedback can help you way before that year is over. You just have to ask. I also think getting feedback can be like a rudder. It can help steer your career one way or the other, and frankly, into ways that may be more meaningful for you, more fulfilling for you, and ultimately more successful for you. But you can't do that without asking. And so I really do think that feedback is a gift.
Great. And other than regular performance reviews where we're expecting feedback, I mean, either can go between one performance review to the next. How do you suggest people ask for feedback? What does that conversation look like?
Absolutely. And I think really gone are the days of once a year feedback. Gone are the days of annual reviews. And I really do think, given the environment we are all in at the moment with coronavirus, given the stress and the anxiety in the world, I think people are very open for a different kind of conversation on many, many levels, including getting professional feedback. So I think asking for feedback constantly, asking for it consistently, I think people are very open to it. Now, I will say there are two sides of that coin. There's the asking for the feedback, and then there's the giving of the feedback. And I think we will address and talk about the giving of the feedback as well. But in terms of asking for feedback, I think you should feel welcome, and you should feel that you have the right to ask for feedback whenever you feel you need it, whether it is a particular job that you've just completed, whether it's a project you've just participated in, whether it's business you've won. And asking for feedback is not just asking for feedback from your boss. I think it's asking for feedback from your peers, from your clients, from the people you work with. And I think it can be just as casual as, how am I doing? How was that? How do you think that went? And I think if you actually ask the question and you are sincere and genuine and you say, I am really trying to work on my skills. I'm trying to work on my presentation skills. I'm trying to work on my sales skills. Or how was my participation in that project? How do you think it was perceived? What do people think about me? What do you think they think about me? What could I have done better? I think people are are open to hearing that. Now, I will say not everybody is comfortable answering honestly. And I think you're going to have to gauge how that feels when you get the feedback. I mean, I know that when I've asked for feedback, that I can tell the person giving me the feedback is uncomfortable telling me perhaps they're leaving something out of the feedback. I can tell that something is missing. And so you graciously say thank you for that feedback. But if you felt that there was something else that you wanted feedback on that you didn't get information on, you ask someone else. And it is, again, boss, peers, colleagues. You can ask your friends, but for the most part, your friends will tell you great things about you. But you may also have a few friends who are honest enough to tell you. So I would ask it from everyone, including clients, particularly in business development. I find if you win a piece of business, I'd love to understand, I'm delighted to have won that business. Was there anything that stood out that I did well? Equally, if you don't win business, what could I have done better? Was there something that I could have done to win your business? I'd love the feedback. And in fact, I do that for my own purposes from a business development perspective. If I win business, I ask, what was it that convinced you that we were the right firm? Equally, if we don't win business, what could we have done differently the next time? And again, you need to take with a grain of salt what people tell you, because some people may struggle to tell you the truth. But I think it can be a very casual conversation. And if you feel that you want more formal feedback, then I would also ask for that as well. Personally, I think managers should be giving feedback quarterly. Absolutely. I think things are moving so quickly. We are moving at warp speed to get things done, to get things accomplished, to achieve tasks, that I think it's fair to ask for a formal quarterly feedback. And it doesn't have to mean that you're asking your boss to do a lot of extra work. Frankly, you can do the work for them and lay out the framework of, here's what I think I'm doing well. Here's what I think I may not be doing well. What do you think? And I think people will be really surprised that a dialogue ensues. And frankly, going back to your first question, Kristy, how else do you know how you're doing? How else do you know how the firm is gauging your performance? And frankly, how else can you grow? And we're all yearning for growth. We all want to learn. And this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I remember my father saying to me as I was growing up, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I'm not sure that necessarily applies in this situation. We had a few years ago in Australia, one of our keynotes was Jane Herdlicka, who at the time was CEO of Jetstar Airways. And she told the story of going back, I think it was 2 or 3 times, to her same manager when she was in a consulting role, asking for feedback and saying, I keep feeling like there's something missing. I want to get better at this. How can I do that? What am I doing? And she said it wasn't until the 2nd or 3rd time that her boss actually got very candid with her and said, okay, well, you really want to, improve and grow and develop. Here's what I really think. And she said that was immensely helpful in adjusting her style and growing in her role.
And I apologize, but I think that's a great example of asking for feedback. And the 1st or 2nd time you do it, you just may not get the answer you want. And frankly, what you might get is, you did really well. I can't think of anything else. But I think if you again frame the question in the context of, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to push my career forward, I want to learn more. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can. Was there anything else that I could have done better? Is there one piece of advice you'd give me? And perhaps, the asking for one piece, it feels more comfortable to the person getting it, or giving the feedback, excuse me. But I actually think that's a great example of somebody feeling like, I'm not getting what I want. Because you may, on your first attempt, get somebody who says to you, it was fine, it was great. Was great. And you think, that's like a closed-ended question. I have nowhere to go with that. I mean, are you sure? Yes, it was great. Anything I could have done better? So And again, maybe there's a different way of asking it. Maybe it is more of an open-ended question, which is, I felt that my presentation skills and the pitch and tone of my voice might not have been right for the audience. How do you feel? What was your perception? How did you feel about that? And even if, frankly, that's not the issue, because you actually felt it was quite appropriate, it opens up the door for somebody to think, oh, all right. Because I also think if you ask the question that way, I think you're giving the person sitting across from you some comfort with the fact that, oh, she's open to feedback. Because I think a lot of this conversation about getting feedback also has to do with how you're feeling about getting it, because not all feedback will be positive. And you need to be open to that, which is also, again, part of the gift of getting feedback. It's the gift of understanding, oh, apparently I didn't do that well. Whether it was a task, a project, presentation skills, whatever it is, financial analysis, research that you were supposed to have done for a project, whatever it is, it just gives you an opportunity to grow and to do it better the next time. Frankly, it's absolutely going to lead to a more satisfying and fulfilling career.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So these are all really great points, Nicole. What about on the giving side? If you're a giver of feedback, do you have any tips for how to frame that feedback?
Be genuine, be authentic. I have given feedback throughout my career pretty consistently, and some of that feedback is not always positive. And I always like to compliment people and tell them what they do well first. And then I say, there are a few other things I'd like to bring up. And the way I used to frame it is, I think I used to say, I have some observations. I have some observations that I think would be really helpful for you, versus, let me tell you about your weaknesses, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it is about, I have some observations and I thought I'd share those with you, see how that feels. The first was, and instead of just, I think, giving by going off a list of, well, 1, well, 2, it's just in the context. We were supposed to have done this, and I think while the point came across, I think we missed point 3. Would you agree? How do you feel about that? Going forward, I think we ought to be checking about the research that we're doing and making sure we're hitting all the relevant points for the audience that we're reaching, whatever it is. Weave it into a story rather than well, let me just tell you, number 1, what I think your biggest weakness is. Because let's be clear, we're human. It doesn't feel great to hear that. Though again, in the context of this whole conversation, it really is a gift to understand what it is that you've done well. But I would be authentic, I would be genuine, and I would also, and for the person giving the feedback and the person receiving it, agree to an action plan. Agree to an action plan, which is, here's the feedback, and here's how I think we ought to work on this together, or here's how I think you should work on it yourself, but come back to me in 30 days and let's see how that feels, or let's talk about this. I really do think, because at the end of the day, what you do with that feedback is what's important. And if you keep it to yourself and hang your head down and just think, oh, I didn't like that, well, all right, but why miss out on the opportunity to learn from it and grow from it and be an even stronger and more productive and successful person? So,
Yeah.
So it's hard. Again, we're all human, and it's hard to hear, and it's hard to tell people that there are things that they ought to improve upon, but it really is a leadership tool, and it's a decision-making tool for everybody. It helps make decisions about your career, how your career progresses, what you may or may not be able to participate in as a result of that. So, and also, it's a really valuable lesson. And by the way, feedback can be about performance, but it can also be about softer skills. So how you collaborate with people, how people perceive you. I always like to tell people, what do people say when you leave the room? That's feedback. Feedback about how you communicate. Frankly, in these days, feedback about how you're handling stress. And I think these are all topics that should be part of feedback and evaluation, not just, did you perform? Because while you may be a great performer, there may be other areas that you're missing out on as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Nicole. It takes me to my next question, which is absolutely perfect. The gold star performers in our audience might feel that feedback they get in the form of promotions or raises is sufficient positive reinforcement for a job well done. What would you say to them about the value of feedback?
Well, first of all, promotion, being paid more, particularly for people who are on an incentive compensation plan. Sure, you think, I'm making more money than I made last year, I'm exceeding my goals, I'm going to be paid well. Absolutely. Performance at the end of the day is what it's about. Leadership is about lots of other feedback, though. You can perform wonderfully, but if you're not asking the question about how else am I performing? Am I perceived as a team player? Am I perceived as the go-to person in the office? Are people coming to me because I have value other than performing, selling, whatever that performance measure is? I think if you're not asking for additional feedback, and I encourage all of you gold star performers to ask for additional feedback for the points I made earlier, because it's not always just about performance. I think if you have aspirations for leadership, particularly to manage people, you're going to need to get feedback about how you're perceived. Do people perceive that you are a leader in the group? Sure, you may be on paper and you're at the top of the league table in your performance, and that's fantastic. We all want performers like that. But are you the leader that people want you to be? And what are some of those softer skills that you need to work on as well? So I think you're missing out on a great opportunity for growth by not asking for feedback and assuming your performance and compensation are all that you need to tell you that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, indeed. There are so many different dimensions to performance. It's all great points,
Absolutely.
Nicole. So thanks for this. This is really insightful. We've talked about the who and the why of feedback. Now let's talk about the when. You've touched a little bit about it, but I want to talk about when asking for feedback can be awkward. Mm-hmm. When do you think it's an appropriate time and frequency to request feedback?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't ask the same person for feedback every day. I think that's not going to work for you. However, wherever you feel that you've accomplished something and you feel quite good about it, or perhaps you don't feel that you accomplished what you hoped to accomplish, ask people for feedback. Here's a great example. Kristy, I'm going to ask you for feedback off camera about this session. I'm going to ask what I could have done better. I'm going to ask what would have worked better for us to make this a more productive session. And I'm going to ask you soon after we get off the line, because I want this to be fresh in your mind. Now, this is a particular moment in time. It's a particular exercise. But if you've just come off of a large project, if you've just won a large deal, I think there's nothing wrong with asking for feedback. And again, it doesn't just have to be your boss. It can be other people you worked on the deal with. It could be even your subordinates. If you are a manager of people, ask your team how they thought you performed, and ask collectively in the sense of what could we as a team have done better? What could I have done better as the leader of the group here? What do you think we ought to try next time? What tools didn't we employ? I think you can ask for feedback as often as you want it. I would just be very careful not to keep asking the same person. As it relates to your boss, I would absolutely ask for quarterly feedback. And you could even request that, put something in your boss's diary every quarter to say 10 minutes. 10 minutes is not threatening. It doesn't seem overwhelming. And maybe the performance evaluation at the end of the year is longer. It's whatever time period your boss wants it to be. But I think there's nothing wrong with checking in. And it doesn't even have to be that formal. I think it can be very informal as well. But I think the when really depends upon what you've accomplished and where you feel there might be an opportunity for you to grow and to learn something different. I would also caution against appearing too needy of feedback, because I think that frankly says something about you as well. You don't want people to perceive that there's an insecurity there that needs to be fed and addressed. You know, speaking of fed and addressed, I mean, if you think of the word feedback, feed back. So someone is, you know, and I like to think of it, the feeding part is nurturing. You know, it is nurturing and life sustaining. And that's getting that feedback does feel great. Now, again, when it's great feedback, but again, be open to really what comes back at you from the information that you're getting. So, and while we all have moments of insecurity, I wouldn't let that drive your need for feedback.
Nicole, you and I have talked a lot off camera about the value of thank you. Can you share what you mean by that and why it's important?
Yes, and you saved the best for last. Like we are, again, we are all human. There's not enough love in the world at the moment. Saying thank you costs you nothing. It costs you nothing. And I think it's a wonderful expression of gratitude, of appreciation, of letting people know that you appreciate their time, you appreciate them. I think, interestingly, I had a client of mine who used to say to me, I appreciate you. And the first time she said it, I thought, oh, she appreciates me. Because most of us say, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Well, what is it? Your time. So it was my client who really first said to me once, this was a few years ago, I appreciate you. And I'm telling you, I stopped in my tracks thinking, well, you're welcome. That felt awfully nice. Again, a pure and simple thank you helps build allies. It builds your network. It builds your support base. And like our grandmothers told us, you get more from honey than vinegar. And just giving thanks and acknowledging someone's time, their efforts, their participation, I think goes a heck of a long way. And so getting feedback, I would absolutely thank the person who gave it to you, regardless of who they are. Even if they didn't have anything to offer, to say, I don't really have any feedback, I think you did very well, then great. Say, thank you very much. Thanks, I appreciate your time. It is building allies and friends and advocates and mentors within all of our organizations. I think the easiest way to do it is by saying thank you, showing people that you appreciate what they are doing. I could do a whole session on giving thanks and how to do it and when to do it next time.
I love that. Thanks for those thoughts, Nicole. Yeah, we had a session where we were talking about building relationships and networking. And one person on the panel said, you know, building relationships when you're in a good situation is really important, because then when you get into a difficult situation, you feel much more comfortable going to people that you know, because you got that good relationship to start with, and say, oh, you know, we've got this problem, we've got a situation, or I've got something I'm trying to work out. Can you help out? And then you're starting from a good place, as opposed to not having those relationships or not building those networks. And then you're starting from scratch in a difficult situation.
And that's really hard. But yes, and I really do think, look, we are all reaching and striving for human connection, especially today, especially as we all work from home. We're on videos all day and we're not seeing people as we used to. We're craving that connection. And I think a thank you builds that bridge pretty quickly. And it connects you to somebody, because what you're really saying is, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. And that makes people feel good. And when people feel like that in building connections, in building out networks, they are far more likely, to your point, to be there when you need them.
Awesome. Yeah. Nicole, I'd like to thank you and express my appreciation for sharing your insights today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
It's been a great discussion. I love your insights to feedback, and thank you. Asking open-ended questions, doing it for personal growth and to build relationships. And, we're all in this together. We're all human. It is great to give feedback with compliments first, and being authentic and genuine. I think that those are all really, really good points. The agreement to an action plan is also, important so that we can actually make some progress and track it as we go forward.
Absolutely.
But the leadership is also, I think, a great opportunity. Even if we think we're the gold star performers, getting some feedback to see how we can even get to that next level. Might not be about the sales numbers, but it could be about the team playing and the other leadership skills that we have opportunities to develop. All good points. Thanks so much, Nicole. It's been a delight.
My pleasure.
I encourage all of our audience to join us online for the many other Pause for Payments discussions that we have weekly with women leaders from around the world on career development topics, on payments industry topics. And throughout the payments ecosystem, we've got all kinds of fascinating discussions happening every week. So thanks everybody for listening, and join us for Pause for Payments again next